but we are both also members of the Senate Agriculture Committee, which is meeting at exactly the same time, and Senator Grassley is present there and will join us when he can. I'm sorry I have to do my votes by proxy, but we have important business which creates conflicts in our schedule every single day. I thank the members who have joined me on the podium as well as those who are witnesses today. This hearing will consider 5 nominees. Rachel Bloomkatz, did I pronounce that correct? Bloomkatz? Yes. Bloomkatz, nominated to the 6th Circuit. Judge Florence Pan, nominated to the D.C. Circuit. Judge Elizabeth Haynes, to the Eastern District of Virginia. Anna Reyes, to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. And Carlos Uriarte, nominated to be Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs. Several of our colleagues are here to introduce a number of our nominees, and I'll start by introducing Judge Pan and Ms. Reyes. Before us today is Judge Florence Pan, nominated to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. She graduated summa cum laude from the University of Pennsylvania, where she also received her law degree with distinction from Stanford Law School. Prior to her appointment to the D.C. Superior Court in 2009, Judge Pan devoted her entire legal career to public service. Selected for the prestigious Bristow Fellowship in the Office of the Solicitor General, she was an attorney in the appellate section of the Criminal Division at the Justice Department and a senior advisor to the Treasury Department. Finally, she served as Assistant U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia for a decade, rising to become Deputy Chief of the Appellate Division in 2007. In 2009, President Obama nominated Judge Pan to serve on the D.C. Superior Court, and the Senate confirmed her by voice vote. Last year, she was nominated to serve on the D.C. District Court, received a strong bipartisan vote in committee, and was confirmed by the Senate. Judge Pan's sterling credentials, as well as her extensive litigation and judicial experience, will be an asset to the D.C. Circuit. I'm pleased to welcome her and her loved ones who've joined her. I'm also pleased to introduce Anna Reyes, nominated to the District Court for the District of Columbia, currently works in D.C. as a partner at Williams Connolly, a well-known firm. Her first home in the U.S. was Kentucky. She immigrated to this country with her parents when she was 5, before she knew any English. But one of her teachers at her Louisville elementary school made sure she would have all the support she needed to excel, meeting with her for an hour before school every morning to tutor her one-on-one. It's my understanding that that teacher, Miss Pat Harkleroad, is here with us today. So thank you, Miss Harkleroad, for being a great teacher. It paid off. Building on the foundation provided by Ms. Harkleroad, Ms. Reyes earned her B.A. summa cum laude from Transylvania University in 1996, then pursued her J.D. at Harvard, where she graduated magna cum laude in 2000. Ms. Reyes began her legal career as clerk for Judge Amalia Kearse on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 2nd Circuit, before joining Williams Connolly as an associate in 2001, becoming a partner in 2009. At the firm, Ms. Reyes has specialized in complex litigation and international arbitration. She has devoted over 3,300 hours to pro bono service during the past 21 years. In particular, she spent significant time representing asylum seekers fleeing political persecution, torture, and gender-based violence. This varied work has given Ms. Reyes extensive experience in every stage of trial and appellate litigation. Moreover, her substantial pro bono efforts speak to a spirit of public service that, coupled with her experience, will serve her well as a federal district judge. If confirmed, she'll be the first Hispanic woman, first openly LGBTQ person to serve as district judge for the District of Columbia. Welcome, Ms. Reyes, to your family and friends. I'm going to defer to Senator Grassley when he arrives, but for the time being, we're going to start with the senators who are here to speak on behalf of nominees, either for the circuit or district bench. And I don't know who was first in order. Senator Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that's what I was told, yeah. Thank you, Chair Durbin, and my honor to sit alongside Senators Kaine and Warner in front of this very distinguished committee. Like the chairman, I have the same problems of in and out that he does today. I chair the Banking Housing Committee, and Jay Powell, Chair of the Federal Reserve, is testifying today, and then I need to join Senator Durbin Agriculture Committee because we have a vote. So thanks always for your generosity. It's my honor to introduce Rachel Bloomkatz, a highly qualified nominee to serve on the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. Ms. Bloomkatz brings with her not only impressive legal credentials, but also the intellect and the empathy and the deep commitment to justice required to serve the people of the Sixth Circuit. Throughout her career, Ms. Bloomkatz has sat on both sides of the table. She's represented people across the political and ideological spectrum. She's represented companies and consumers, argued on behalf of the government and for the rights of private citizens. She's been recognized for the breadth of her practice, which includes work on civil and criminal matters. She's worked to reduce the sentence of a child sentenced to 112 years in prison. She's worked with women's and veterans groups seeking justice for women harmed while giving birth on active duty at military hospitals. Our friend Marco Rubio worked with her on an amicus brief where she argued in support of Senator Rubio's legislation providing protections for victims of human trafficking. Don't just take it from me, of course, Mr. Chair. Listen to the chorus of people from both sides of the aisle and across the ideological and political spectrum who enthusiastically support Ms. Bloomkatz's nomination. 20 fellow Supreme Court clerks, including several Scalia and Kavanaugh clerks, wrote to the committee saying, and I quote, "The signatories to this letter span the political spectrum and work in various areas of law. We're law professors, prosecutors, law firm partners, public defenders, and more. We hold diverse opinions in many areas of law, but we're united in our view that Rachel's an extraordinary nominee who uphold the best traditions and defining attributes of the federal courts, the rule of law, equal justice, and fidelity to the Constitution." 25 Ohio appellate lawyers also wrote in support of her nomination, noting that while some of the signatories, quote, "will no doubt disagree with some of the opinions Rachel will author or join on the Sixth Circuit," unquote, they were nevertheless, again, quote, "united in urging the Judiciary Committee and the United States Senate to confirm her." The letter goes on, Rachel has the right temperament to serve as an Article III judge, and her intelligence and diligence and respect for the rule of law will make her an excellent addition to the court. Signatories to the letter include Benjamin Flowers, a former Scalia clerk who was appointed by Ohio Attorney General David Yost, a Republican, to serve as Solicitor General, as well as 3 members of Mr. Flowers' team. Louis Chaitin, former Scalia clerk and Jones Day partner in Cleveland. Jedediah Bressman, president of the Columbus chapter of the Federalist Society, and Professor Chris Walker, her colleague at the Ohio State University's Moritz College of Law. Mr. Walker worked for Senator Hatch on this committee. Many of you remember him. For many years served as a member of the Bipartisan District Court Commission, a Portman appointee that Senator Portman and I convened to select these nominees no matter the party of the president. Perhaps Ms. Bloomkatz's most powerful endorsement is that of the judges already seated on the Sixth Circuit who have appointed her to represent clients in serious cases where fundamental rights were at stake. Finally, Ms. Bloomkatz's nomination is supported by Jewish leaders, including Eric Fingerhut, CEO of the Jewish Federations of North America, Howie Bingelman, Executive Director of Ohio Jewish Communities, Joel Markovitz, the CEO of Jewish Columbus, who represent the breadth and diversity of Ohio's Jewish community. Another rabbi, Ken Cantor, was Rachel's rabbi when she was a child in Nashville. Rabbi Cantor said, Rachel's deep values informed by her biblical faith have led to her compassion for people and her commitment to justice and the law. I can think of no better endorsement, Mr. Chairman, than that. Some on this committee have joined me as I lead 7 senators on the Senate floor every April to read Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail. In that letter, he wrote that progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It rolls in because of people like Ms. Bloomkatz, who will be a voice for justice for our state, for the Sixth Circuit, and for our country. I urge my colleagues, Mr. Chair, on this committee to question her, to listen to her thoughtful answers, to weigh the facts, including the ABA's determination that she is well qualified, and advance her to the full Senate so that she can get to work serving the Sixth Circuit and serving our country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Brown. We know you have to leave for other committees, and we appreciate your coming here in person today. We next have the singular honor of 2 former governors of the Commonwealth of Virginia and current U.S. senators who are here to testify. In an order of celebrity and seniority, we start with Senator Warner.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's great to be here with Senator Brown and you and all of our colleagues on the dais. And I do want to point out for the record, because it sounds like the qualifications of the candidate you introduced was tremendous. Obviously, the qualifications of the candidate that Senator Brown introduced. But I will point out there is only one judicial candidate here who is being introduced by her full Senate delegation, and that is Judge Haynes from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Judge Haynes, Elizabeth Wilson Haynes, is a fellow Virginian, outstanding public servant, and the President's nominee to serve as U.S. District Court Judge for the Eastern District of Virginia. She's joined here today by her husband Patrick, as well as 3 of her 4 children. I'm not sure what the excuse the 4th child gave for not being here, but we can figure that out in the questioning. We're also happy to have with us Judge Haynes' parents, John and Vicki Wilson, and Abby Fife, her niece. Judge Haynes is a Virginia native and longstanding pillar of Virginia's legal community, where she is able to combine both her incredible razor-sharp legal analysis with a strong commitment to the community. Before becoming an attorney, she was an AmeriCorps volunteer, where she actually helped establish a nonprofit for abused children and crime victims in West Virginia. She currently serves not only as a magistrate judge, but as an adjunct professor at the University of Richmond School of Law, where I think Senator Kaine had a great deal of interaction with her. Judge Haynes is already well known in the legal community, especially to the judges and lawyers in the Eastern District. She, as I said, serves as a magistrate judge in that district and upholding the district's rocket docket reputation. She also has federal courts experience, working as an assistant federal defender and as a managing attorney for Consumer Litigation Associates in Richmond. You'll hear from Tim, and I won't steal his thunder in terms of her legal background, but she's clerked and again, well known in the community. This kind of lifetime of personal and legal services, I think, has prepared her well for a seat on the Eastern District. I think Judge Haynes will serve with distinction and make our country and the Commonwealth proud. And I appreciate, again, the chairman's courtesy for letting us jointly introduce Judge Haynes.
Thanks, Senator Warner. Senator Kaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it is great to be here and to join my colleague. You introduced us as former Virginia governors. We were also law school classmates. We were in law school at the same time, and Mark always says, Tim became a lawyer and I became a client.
You might tell where we didn't meet.
We did not meet in the class. We met at a party. But it is great to be here for Judge Haynes. Mark talked a little bit about her background, double University of Richmond grad. Following law school, did 2 clerkships, a district court clerkship in West Virginia, and then a 4th Circuit clerkship for a 4th Circuit judge sitting in West Virginia. And then she had a really interesting law practice that's maybe a little bit different than the norm of people who come before you as practitioners. Her first stint in practice was as a federal public defender, so on the defense side of representing indigent folks who are charged with crimes in the federal court system. She then left that position to become a plaintiff's consumer rights lawyer at a company called Consumer Law Associates, which is the premier consumer rights firm in Virginia and one of the premier consumer rights firms in the country. So having that background of criminal defense, but then plaintiff side consumer litigation makes her a little bit unusual in terms of the people who come before the committee. She has the strong support of the bar, including many of the lawyers who litigated against her, U.S. attorneys who were on the other side of cases she was defending, defense counsel who were on the other side of consumer rights cases that she was initiating. In 2020, when this committee in the Senate elevated a magistrate on the court in Richmond to a district court position, the district judges in Richmond do what they do. They needed a magistrate, and you all know how critical magistrates are to the federal system. And I would say particularly, we all think we're special. The rocket docket in the Eastern District of Virginia is very unusual. For decades, the tradition has been when a civil case is filed, you know you will have a trial date within 6 months. And that means you have to get your ducks in a row, and the judges and magistrates have to run it that way, often to lawyers' frustration, but usually to clients' delight, because cases that drag on for years and years and years are both psychologically and financially very difficult for litigants. So after practicing in the court and becoming familiar with this, Judge Haynes applied to be the magistrate, and she was selected by the judges on the court, the EDVA, to be the sole magistrate sitting in Richmond, where she has performed very ably. And so to the chorus of attorneys who were weighing in on her behalf, who'd litigated with her, against her when she was in practice, we now have all those who are litigating before the EDVA who are strongly in Elizabeth's corner. I don't know Elizabeth that well, although I feel like I do because I live 6 blocks from the courthouse and I know all the lawyers who practice there, and it's where I practiced for 17 years. But I can vouch for the fact that her husband Patrick is an excellent camper and canoeist, and I've been together with him in the outdoors before, and he is here. But a high-quality person who has really demonstrated a great heart for public service and really earned the affection and confidence and trust of the bar. She'll be a great U.S. District Judge, and I'm proud to be here and introduce and recommend her.
Thanks, Senator Kaine. Thanks to you and Senator Warner for your kind words for Judge Haynes. We'll now proceed, and before I recognize my colleague, Senator Padilla, I want to acknowledge the presence of former Attorney General Michael Mukasey, who is joining in moral support of Judge Pan's nomination. Thank you very much, Attorney General, for being here today. I understand that Senator Padilla would like to introduce Mr. Uriarte.
Thank you. Yes, another great Californian before us. Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you, Ranking Member Grassley. Proud to introduce President Biden's outstanding nominee for Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legislative Affairs at the Department of Justice. Carlos Uriarte is an experienced public servant, a grandson of immigrants, and a proud Californian. He's joined today by his partner, Nate, his mother Magda, and his father Carlos, and I want to just welcome them all to the Capitol and to the committee today. Mr. Uriarte's impressive record on Capitol Hill includes, get this, colleagues, work for both parties and both chambers of Congress. He's committed to making our government work for all Americans, and to aid in that effort, Mr. Uriarte has served as chief counsel for the investigations on the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis, and he also brings experience from the executive branch. During the Obama administration, Mr. Uriarte served in the Department of Justice and the Department of Interior. He is known in the public and private sectors for his legal skill and ability to build partnerships. He recently worked on healthcare equity as vice president for Unite Us. He's a skilled navigator of Capitol Hill and is highly qualified to lead the Office of Legislative Affairs. I know that he will help Congress and the Department of Justice work even closer together in pursuit of equal justice for all. And I urge the committee to support his swift confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. Senator Hirono?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased to introduce President Biden's nominee for the United States Court of Appeals, D.C. Circuit, Judge Florence Y. Pan of the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. I have known Judge Pan for many years through our mutual involvement with the National Asia Pacific American Bar Association. Judge Pan has dedicated her career to public service and has spent the last 23 years serving the residents of the District of Columbia. She is extremely qualified and has the intellect, judgment, and temperament to be an outstanding circuit court judge. Judge Pan has been a judge for 13 years. She served on the D.C. Superior Court for over 12 years and has been a federal district court judge since last September. Before her appointment to the bench, she was an assistant United States attorney in the District of Columbia for 10 years. She has a strong appellate background. She was a deputy chief of the appellate division of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and she also worked in the Office of the Solicitor General and the appellate section of the criminal division of the U.S. Department of Justice. Judge Pan has presided over 65 trials, dealing with civil and criminal cases, and she has written approximately 35 opinions in the district court for the District of Columbia. As a prosecutor, she tried approximately 40 cases, including 20 jury trials. Through her extensive experience, she has grappled with complex legal issues, managed difficult cases, and has heard the perspectives of a wide variety of parties, witnesses, and victims. When she was confirmed to serve as a district court judge, Judge Pan received a unanimous rating of well qualified from the American Bar Association. They again rated her with a unanimous well qualified rating to serve on the D.C. Circuit. This committee favorably reported her nomination by a bipartisan vote of 18-4, and the Senate confirmed her by a bipartisan vote of 68-30. Among the many letters supporting Judge Pan for the role of circuit judge, I would highlight the letters from the National Asia American Pacific Bar Association, the Hispanic National Bar Association, the Superior Court Trial Lawyers Association, and letters from distinguished members of the appellate bar in D.C. Judge Pan's story is uniquely American. The daughter of parents born in mainland China, who later fled to Taiwan and immigrated to the United States. Judge Pan herself has said that only in America could she, quote, have become a federal judge just one generation after her parents fled communism, end quote, in China. She has dedicated her career to giving back to our country. In light of her clear qualifications, strong endorsements, and decades of public service, I am confident that Judge Pan will serve with integrity and honor as a circuit judge. I look forward to her testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Hirono. And now, without objection, I'll enter into the record a letter of support from Congressman James Clyburn for Mr. Uriarte, and a letter from Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton in support of Ms. Reyes. So we'll start with the panels. The first panel will consist of Ms. Bloomkatz and Judge Pan, if they would please come forward. Remain standing till we do the changing of the identification. Great. Now I ask you to take the following oath. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that both nominees have answered in the affirmative, which makes this an easier job. And we'll start with Ms. Bloomkatz.
Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley in absentia, and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, thank you for considering my nomination today. Thank you to Senator Brown for his service to Ohio, for his support, and for that warm introduction. I want to express my gratitude to President Biden for the honor of this nomination. I have lived most of my life within the Sixth Circuit's multiple states. I was born in Michigan. I spent my formative middle school and high school years in Tennessee, and I've been proud to call Ohio home for well over a decade. I've never lived in Kentucky, but it's a favorite hiking spot for our family. Being nominated to serve as an appellate judge for these states that I've called home is truly the highlight of my professional life. Judge Calabresi, Chief Justice Marshall, and Justice Breyer gave me a better start to my legal career than I could have ever imagined. I thank them for all they taught me about our incredible system of justice. I'm blessed to have so many family members, friends, colleagues, and mentors in Columbus, Ohio, and throughout the country who are supporting me. And I want to especially thank my Temple Israel family for their unyielding support. My faith is an integral part of who I am and is why I'm driven to public service. My two brothers are cheering me on remotely, one in Mississippi and one in New York. With me today in the hearing room is Lindsay Nathan, my oldest childhood friend who I met in religious school in Tennessee. Also here are my in-laws, Rabbi Harold Berman and Beth Berman, and my parents, David Bloom and Lori Katz. I cannot thank the four of them enough for all their support. They all live nearby in Columbus, and I am forever indebted to them for all of the child care help. It's not always easy being a working mom, especially one running her own law practice. I couldn't do it without them. My incredible husband, Micah Berman, is here, of course. I can't imagine a more supportive husband and father, which brings me to my kids, Seth and Dahlia. The two of them bring me so much joy. And Dahlia, I promise we'll be back home tomorrow to celebrate your 5th birthday with unicorn cupcakes. Senators, thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my gratitude to all these people, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Judge Pan?
Thank you, Chair Durbin, and thanks to Ranking Member Grassley as well for the opportunity to appear before the committee today. And many thanks to Senator Hirono for her kind introduction and for her outstanding leadership in the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. I also want to thank President Biden for the tremendous honor of this nomination. I'd first like to introduce the committee to my parents, Wuching and Felicia Pan, who are here today. My parents were not yet teenagers when they fled mainland China in 1949 after the communists won the civil war there. They met in college in Taipei, Taiwan, and they came to the United States so that my father could pursue a graduate degree in New York City. They chose to remain in this country because they recognized that this country offered the best opportunities for themselves and their children. I want to thank my parents for all of the choices and sacrifices that they made that allowed me to become the person that I am today. And as Senator Hirono said, only in America could I be sitting before this committee as a nominee to the DC Circuit just one generation after my parents fled communism in 1949. I also have with me here today my family, my husband, Max Steyer, and our two sons, Zachary and Noah, who are 17 and 16 years old. My family means everything to me, and I could not be prouder of them. And I promised Zachary that I would tell the committee that he would love to have all of your autographs after this hearing. Also, I am proud to introduce my sister, Gloria Pan, who is the first role model I ever had. I spent most of my childhood trying to be just like her. And last but not least, I am so privileged to have with me today the Honorable Michael B. Mukasey, for whom I clerked almost 30 years ago. Perhaps anticipating one of the committee's questions, I will say that Judge Mukasey is my judicial role model. I was so fortunate to start my legal career working for one of the most brilliant, kind, and witty judges in this country, and I strive to live up to his example every time I put on my robe. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the committee's questions.
Thank you very much, Judge Pan. Let me start with the first round of 5-minute questions of each of the nominees. Ms. Bloomkatz, I sat here in surprise and maybe startled as Senator Sherrod Brown announced that you received a letter of support from the Federalist Society. It is rare to have that accolade handed down by a Democratic senator to a nominee from the Biden administration. We are just hours removed from a bipartisan measure passing its first hurdle in the Senate to deal with gun safety. It is such a rarity it made news all across America. To what do you attribute your bipartisan support?
Thank you so much for that question, Chair Durbin. One of the best things about being an appellate practitioner in Ohio is our very collegial and supportive and, quite frankly, friendly community. It doesn't matter if we come from different political backgrounds. It doesn't matter if we're on the other side of a case from one another. Sometimes our clients can be fighting quite vigorously against one another, but we're always very professional. We always have respect for one another, and we're always supporting one another as we brief and argue cases in some of the highest courts in our state. And certainly, if I'm fortunate to be confirmed, I look forward to building those same types of relationships with the other members on the Sixth Circuit.
Judge Pan, I could ask you the same question. A nominee in the Biden administration who clearly has many supporters on the other side of the aisle. But I'd like to focus on one other aspect of your background, and you've made reference to it, and that was your immigrant experience, first-generation American. What does this nomination mean to you in that context?
Thank you so much for the question, Senator Durbin. I am so proud of my background and my heritage as an Asian American. I grew up in a family where Chinese was spoken in the home, and I learned so much from my parents in terms of their work ethic and their value of education. And these are all things that have contributed to who I am today. And I very much appreciate that background, and I very much appreciate the support of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community for my nomination.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse?
Thank you very much. First, let me welcome Ms. Bloomkatz and Ms. Pan. Thank you, Judge Pan, I should say. It's great to have you both here, and I wanted, in particular, to, not that I've got anything against anybody else, but Sherrod Brown and I are particularly close, and I have an enormously high regard for him. And so, Ms. Bloomkatz, I have particular confidence in your selection because I'm a huge fan of Sherrod. We came into the Senate together, and he's one of the most honest and principled people that I know. So, bravo and welcome for his recommendation. You have represented a fairly broad spectrum of clients. Without going into too much detail, could you give the committee an overview of the breadth of the spectrum of clients you've represented as an appellate practitioner?
I'd be happy to, Senator. In the course of my career arguing in state and federal appellate courts throughout the country, I have really gained a broad experience to see cases from all sides. So I've represented large employers when I was an appellate attorney at Jones Day, and I've also represented employees. I've represented Fortune 500 companies, and I've represented individuals who are suing corporations. And I defended the state as an assistant attorney general, and I've sued the state. So I certainly have been on both sides of many, many cases.
In my circuit, the First Circuit, the judges are fairly scrupulous about who they choose to appoint to cases in which the court has to appoint a lawyer to argue a case. And I note that the Sixth Circuit has appointed you to argue a case in front of the Sixth Circuit. What is the process for that, and is there a similar situation? Is there a credentialing quality to the Sixth Circuit having chosen you to argue a case?
Senator, it was certainly a great honor to be selected by the Sixth Circuit, and especially such an esteemed panel of the Sixth Circuit to argue a case and to brief a case where there wasn't counsel. I'll note on that panel was Judge Guy Cole, whose seat I am seeking to replace, and he's been a mentor of mine. Also on that panel was Chief Judge Sutton, who's also a member of mine, and it was a true honor to get to appear before them.
Senator Marco Rubio and I are trying to get rid of fallback together. So I noted with interest that you'd worked on an amicus brief filed on behalf of Senator Rubio. Could you say a word about that?
Senator, I worked on an amicus brief for Senator Rubio in the Fourth Circuit, and I was proud to represent him. It was a really tragic case of human trafficking, and given Senator Rubio's leadership on the reauthorization of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, he filed a brief about how the statute in that case works and how it should be giving compensation to victims like the one in that case.
You have provided a letter from 25 Ohio appellate lawyers, including a former Scalia clerk who is now Ohio's Solicitor General. And also there's been a letter from Supreme Court clerks from the October 2011 term, including several Scalia clerks. They seem to have a warm place in their heart for you, the Scalia Clerk Society.
Senator, I think it's important in all the different professional contexts that I've worked in to develop positive relationships with my colleagues, and I'm really proud to have their support as I come before the committee today.
Well, one sentence each from each of the letters, and then I'll conclude. Rachel has the right temperament to serve as an Article III judge, and her intelligence, diligence, and respect for the rule of law will make her an excellent addition to the Sixth Circuit. That's the Benjamin Flowers and others letter, and the letter from your fellow Supreme Court clerks. We are united in our view that Rachel is an extraordinary nominee who will uphold the best traditions and defining attributes of the federal courts, the rule of law, equal justice, and fidelity to the Constitution. Welcome. I wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to both of you, and Judge Pan, it's always good to see you. I ask the following two initial questions of every nominee who appears before any of the committees on which I sit, and this has to do with my wanting to ensure the fitness of the nominee. So I'll ask each of you these questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Ms. Bloomkatz, I have been on this committee for a number of years, and the committee can be very contentious, as I'm sure you've noticed. I think you must hold the record for having the support of just the entire spectrum of ideological views. And you mentioned that that you have the support over this broad spectrum because of the relationships that you develop. I'd like to know a little bit more about how you go about developing these relationships. Do you have lunch with them? Do you, what do you do? Do you go on picnics? What?
Thank you for that question, Senator Hirono. I think it's just my general approach in life when I meet new people to get to know them and to learn who they are as a person. Benjamin Flowers, who has been mentioned here, sat next to me at Jones Day, and we got to know about each other's kids. And that always means that when we are having great intellectual conversations about case law or about a particular case out there, we already are starting with a base of friendship and a base of mutual respect.
Well, I'm a little bit, what can I say? Because certainly if we spend a lot more time with our colleagues, then we'd probably be better off. So you, I think you show that you have a genuine interest in the people that you are working with, and I think that probably goes a long way, even as you have major disagreements in how you're going to approach a case and how you would assess a case. I think you mentioned that pro bono work is important to you. Why?
Senator, I think it is important, particularly in the area of criminal defense, that everyone has competent and effective counsel. And sometimes it is important for private members of the bar to step up and provide that representation. Our system really just doesn't work without it. So I have had the pleasure and the opportunity to take on different pro bono assignments all throughout my career, and I've learned so much from doing so as well.
Judge Pan, I know that you are the daughter of immigrants who fled communist China when they were only teenagers. Have they talked with you about their life experiences and and the challenges that they faced, escaping communism and ending up in the United States? Have any of those discussions informed your decision to serve in public service?
Thank you for the question, Senator Hirono. Yes, I have spoken with my parents about their experiences fleeing China. My mother's family in particular had a difficult and challenging journey out of mainland China because my grandfather on my mother's side was a general in the KMT, in the Nationalist Army. And so she tells stories of hiding in haystacks as they were trying to safely flee the mainland. With respect to my dedication to public service, I think part of that does come from the fact that my grandfather on my father's side was an administrative law judge in China. And so I'm proud to carry on that tradition of public service in this country.
Did you have any desire to be in private practice?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I very much respect what attorneys in private practice do, and I was a summer associate at several excellent law firms in New York. And I also worked at Goldman Sachs earlier in my career. But I think the reason I went to law school was because I wanted some larger purpose and to pursue a career in public service.
I'm really pleased to see you here. I think both of you will make wonderful judges. Aloha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Hirono. Senator Coons?
Thank you, Chairman Durbin. I'd like to thank both of the nominees today and your families for supporting you and your dedication to public service and your willingness to appear before this committee today. If I could, Ms. Bloomkatz, in looking over the arc of your engagement as an attorney, a piece of it, you've done some work on behalf of political candidates and organizations, yet you're nominated to be an Article III judge, a demonstrably nonpartisan role. As has been referenced by my colleague, Senator Whitehouse, we received a number of letters from different groups supporting your nomination. One that struck me was a group of appellate lawyers, noticeably bipartisan, who've gotten to know you. They've either opposed you, worked with you, befriended you, and they specifically say in their letter that we, the undersigned, disagree on a number of issues. Many of us, no doubt, will disagree with some of the opinions that Rachel will author or join on the Sixth Circuit, but we're united in urging the committee, the Judiciary Committee, to confirm it to the Sixth Circuit. They go on to say you have the right temperament to serve as an Article III judge, and your intelligence, diligence, and respect for the rule of law will make you an excellent addition to the Sixth Circuit. Your colleagues from Ohio clearly have confidence in your ability, and in particular, your ability to serve as a judge. Could you just briefly tell us about your understanding of the appropriate role of a judge versus that of an advocate or an elected official, and why you're confident you can faithfully take on the nonpartisan role of a federal judge?
I'd be happy to, Senator. The roles are very different. As an advocate, you start with a position, and you're duty-bound to advocate for your client to the best of your ability within the bounds of the law. Of course, as a judge, you start with no position, and you have to approach a case without any assumptions, without any bias, without any prejudgment. And you have to dig into the record on that case. You've got to research the applicable law. You've got to be open-minded in listening to the parties' arguments, and then you've got to work with your colleagues to reach a faithful application of the law to the facts in those cases. And I'm confident about my ability to make that transition because I'm committed to the rule of law in our system of justice, and that's what our system demands.
Thank you. I'm confident of that as well and look forward to supporting your nomination. Judge Pan, it was an honor to join with a bipartisan supermajority of my colleagues to confirm you to the district court for the District of Columbia last year. And I'm grateful for your husband's lifelong commitment to public service, your lifelong commitment to public service, and for your family's willingness to continue to support you. By serving as a district court judge, you've been continuing that career, a career that's included a decade of service as a D.C. Superior Court judge, a decade of service as an AUSA for the District of Columbia. We've received letters of support for your nomination, including from the union that represents the District of Columbia police officers. In their letter, they lauded your decades of public service and your reputation, and I'm quoting, as a serious, no-nonsense judge who applied the law fairly to all who appeared before you. What steps do you take to ensure litigants in your courtroom currently feel they're being given a fair hearing?
Thank you for the question, Senator Coons. I've been so honored to serve as a judge for the past 13 years, and it has been a priority for me to administer justice fairly, even-handedly, and in accordance with the law. And I try to make that clear in every case that I hear in my courtroom. And I've learned how important it is to make sure that every litigant, every party has a chance to be heard. And I specifically take pains to make sure that everyone has that opportunity. And in particular, I have tried to give that opportunity to pro se litigants who appear before me. And I think that's a really important part of administering justice and making sure that everyone feels that justice has been served.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. I think your qualifications and your relevant experience are undeniable. Now that you've served as a federal district court judge, could you just briefly help us understand how your legal career and your life experiences prepared you for that role, and how your service on the district court and your previous experience has prepared you for elevation to the circuit court?
Thank you, Senator Coons. I've been a judge for 13 years, and before that, I was an assistant United States attorney for 10 years. I was a deputy chief in the appellate division of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I've served in the criminal appellate section and also in the Solicitor General's office at Main Justice. I think all of these experiences will serve me well on the Court of Appeals. I'll note that I've presided over more than 650 trials, including approximately 144 jury trials. I have personally briefed and argued more than 40 cases in federal and local courts of appeal, including one en banc case before the D.C. Circuit. And when I was a Superior Court judge, I sat by designation on the D.C. Court of Appeals, and I authored 2 appellate decisions for that court. I think all of these experiences will stand me in good stead if I'm lucky enough to be confirmed.
I agree. That's an impressive record of public service and judicial experience. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator. Senator Kennedy.
All right.
Still trying to get ready.
All right.
Senator Blackburn.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that, and welcome to each of you. We appreciate that you are here and giving us your time, and appreciate your interest in service to our country, so thank you. Ms. Bloomkatz, I want to come to you. I had noted a speech that you gave discussing late Justice Ginsburg, and you expressed support for the idea that judges should use their own, and I'm quoting you, living experience to interpret and apply law. So what I'd like to know is how you approach this. Do you think that judges interpret and apply the law as written and intended by Congress, or do they do it in view of their lived experiences? And would using that personal experience disrupt the continuity and equal justice under the law?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I don't recall that speech. I remember doing a panel after a movie at an independent movie theater about the late Justice Ginsburg, but I'm happy to speak with you about my approach to the law and how I think judges should go about deciding cases. And it's my view that a judge should decide each case with humility, and you have to look at the record in that case, and you have to look at the law and the binding precedent, and that is what has to guide your decision in a case. And you have to work with your colleagues to faithfully apply the law in each and every case.
Okay. Let me ask you about your advocacy for groups. You've frequently represented Everytown for Gun Safety.
Senator, I have been co-counsel for Everytown with Gun Safety with the support of the Ohio FOP.
Okay. Now, I know that they have opposed constitutional carry, and I'm sure you are aware that 25 states, including Tennessee, are constitutional carry states. And Tennessee, of course, is a part of the Sixth Circuit. So talk with me how you plan to divorce your personal views regarding gun control from your work as a federal judge.
Senator, the United States Supreme Court is very clear about its precedents on the Second Amendment. The Heller case, which the Supreme Court decided, said that there is an individual right to keep and bear arms, and the Supreme Court followed up after that case with McDonald and explained that that right was fundamental and was incorporated against the state. The Sixth Circuit as well has precedent on the Second Amendment, and those are the precedents that would guide me if any case about gun regulation or the Second Amendment were to come before me if I'm fortunate to be confirmed.
Okay, then let me ask you this. 2019, you did a presentation in Uruguay, and you suggested that the Second Amendment is not the force that is holding back gun control. Rather, you blamed politicians beholden to the NRA for stopping reasonable gun regulation. So let's approach it like this. What kind of gun regulation does the Second Amendment permit?
Senator, just to clarify about that presentation, I was giving a presentation to foreign law students in Uruguay who didn't really know much about the Second Amendment, and I was explaining Heller to them. They don't really know about U.S. politics, and I was just explaining that this is an area of debate in our country, something that they wouldn't know. If I am fortunate to be confirmed, whatever laws about gun regulations, if they were to come before me, if I'm confirmed, would have to be evaluated under the Heller decision, the McDonald decision, and the precedents that are in the Sixth Circuit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Blackburn. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bloomkatz, hello, good morning, welcome. I was going to ask a question very similar to what Senator Coons has already asked, and I think has been further extrapolated in response to what Senator Blackburn has asked, and that's acknowledging the difference between being a lawyer versus a judge, being an advocate versus decision-making you'd be called upon to do from the federal bench. So just, is there anything further you want to add to your answer or expand upon before I move on?
Senator, I have had the privilege in my career doing appeals in state and federal courts for representing people from all different political backgrounds. And the one thing that I want when I walk into the courtroom is for the judge to be neutral, for the judge to listen to our arguments, and for the judge to faithfully apply the law. And that's exactly what I do.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Question for Judge Penn. Good morning. Welcome. Or welcome back, I should say. Now, the last time you appeared before this committee, you were favorably reported to serve as a district court judge by a vote of 18-4. So clearly overwhelming and bipartisan. And that was just less than a year ago. Since that time, you've already written about 35 opinions and adjudicated a broad variety of legal matters. This is, of course, in addition to your more than a decade of service as a judge on the D.C. Superior Court. So can you describe how your service on the D.C. Circuit Court should give senators who have already voted to confirm you once during this Congress even more confidence in your ability to serve as an Article III judge?
Thank you so much, Senator Padilla. I'm honored to be before the committee again, and I think that in terms of the new position for which I've been nominated, I would want to emphasize my appellate background, which was not the focus of my prior hearing. And I did start out as a law clerk both on the trial and appellate level in the Second Circuit, and I then started my career as an appellate attorney at the Solicitor General's office and then in the criminal appellate section of the Department of Justice. I served as deputy chief of the U.S. Attorney's Office's appellate division and served for 5 years in that office. And so I have a very deep and long history as an appellate attorney as well, and have personally briefed and argued more than 40 cases in both the local and federal courts of appeal.
So track record, qualifications, experience.
Thank you, yes.
In my time remaining, one question for both of you. Anybody who's monitored the proceedings of this committee, particularly with prior nominations, knows that I take the opportunity to emphasize the value of diversity in the federal judiciary at all levels, and not just on the bench, but when it comes to staff as well, especially when it comes to law clerks, and you understand how important that is. So two-part question. One, do you agree that additional diversity makes our federal judiciary better? And if confirmed, what you would do to advance that within your own offices and chambers. We'll start with Ms. Bloomkatz.
Thank you, Senator. I do agree with you that diversity is very important, and I think diversity serves the federal bench well in multiple respects. One is, I think that it enhances public confidence in the court system, where members of the community can see that the judiciary is made up of people like them. And I also think that it can enhance decision-making because judges come from different areas of expertise and can work together to make sure that they are faithfully applying the law in every single case. And those are values that I would advance if I'm fortunate to be confirmed.
Thank you. Ms. Penn.
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with the words of Ms. Bloomkatz in this regard. And I also would note that increased diversity also serves the function of providing role models to groups that might traditionally be underrepresented in the legal profession. And I think that's important too. And certainly that's important in the law clerk hiring process.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Professor, what did you think about the leak of the draft opinion at the Supreme Court?
Senator, I thought it was horrible. I thought it was a huge breach of confidence and the inner workings of the Supreme Court and of an institution that, having had the honor of being able to clerk at, that I really admire. I was really dismayed to hear about the leak.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. What limitations on free speech can the owner of a public shopping center place on its patrons?
Senator, this is not something that I've had experience in my career arguing cases throughout the country on.
I know, but I just want your thoughts. You're a Supreme Court clerk and you've got extraordinary credentials. Give me your thoughts. Help me analyze.
Well, one of my first thoughts, Senator, is these cases about First Amendment and whether there is seen to be a public forum somewhere are entirely context dependent. You really need to dig into the record in the case and see which precedents it lines up to most, and then figure it out that way without having kind of a general idea of whether it would always be okay.
Well, what
or
are
never be
the
okay.
interests that you have to balance?
Senator, our Constitution, of course, protects a right to speech, and that's very important to our country. And you also have the rights of a property owner in that case. And again, you would need to look at the particular context and the applicable precedents that match up most closely with that context in order to make any determination.
Okay. Let me ask you about, you're in private practice. You represent a group called Every Town for Gun Safety.
They have been co-counsel in some of my cases, Senator.
Okay. Well, look, I don't think it's fair to blame, to impute to attorneys all the values of their clients. I mean, I think everybody has a right to counsel. As I've said before in this committee, I've had clients that I didn't agree with. I've had clients I didn't even like. But I'm human, you're human, we have personal opinions. Do you agree with the positions of Every Town for Gun Safety?
Senator, I'm not familiar with all of the positions of Every Town for Gun Safety. I'm happy to talk
Well,
about
how about
my...
this? One of them is Every Town for Gun Safety, your client, says ban assault weapons. Personally, do you agree with that?
Senator, as a mom and someone who cares about gun violence. I think these issues are very important to discuss.
I know, that's why I'm asking you. You
Yeah.
agree with them? You
know-
agree we should ban assault weapons?
I think these are questions that policymakers, whether it's this body, who I know
Yeah, but
is
I'm just
working
asking
on-
what you believe. I mean, please don't dodge my question. You're a bright person. I know you've thought about it. Just tell me what you believe. Do you believe we should ban assault weapons?
I believe, Senator, that as a nominee to the federal bench, it'd be inappropriate for me to express
Oh, I don't.
any
I
personal.
don't understand that you have personal beliefs and values. I don't want you not to have personal beliefs and values. If you haven't thought about this stuff, you're not qualified. So let me ask you again, do you, it's a simple question. Do you think we ought to ban assault weapons?
Senator, if any case about gun regulation were to come before me, if I'm fortunate to be
Why are you
confirmed.
just afraid to say you do?
Senator, I'm bound by the Code of Judicial Ethics.
No, you're not.
even
You're
as
not a
nominee.
judge.
I wouldn't want any of.
You're not a judge. You're a professor.
Senator, I do very much enjoy teaching my law students and being a professor, but as a nominee, I
So
have
you're
to
not
be
going to tell me
careful
whether
about.
you agree with banning assault weapons?
Senator, I don't think it's appropriate to comment on policy issues, particularly policy issues that could come before a court if I am fortunate to be confirmed.
It's going to be hard to vote for you, counselor, if you won't tell me what your values are. Okay? I play poker with a lot of friends every now and then, and I trust them, but I always cut the cards. I'm not saying I don't trust you, but if you won't tell me what your values are, it's going to be hard to vote for you. And I don't think it furthers this process for you to dodge. I just don't.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Booker.
Thank you both for being before us today. Ms. Bloomkatz, my questions are going to really be for you. So you live in Guatemala, or you were teaching Guatemalans? I couldn't get it right.
Just to clarify, I was teaching in Uruguay.
In Uruguay, okay. I'm going to have to talk to my staff about that.
I have visited Guatemala. It's beautiful, but I was teaching in Uruguay.
And are you fluent in Spanish?
Not completely fluent, but I can get by for sure.
That's fantastic. And a lot's being made of your class presentation on issues revolving the Second Amendment, correct?
I've received questions about that, Senator.
Yes. And your class, you're giving a fulsome exposure to them, I imagine, on the breadth and the length of the debate, correct?
That's correct, Senator.
And the constitutional implications thereof.
Exactly.
Were you advocating for personal beliefs in that class?
No, I was giving a descriptive overview and making sure I explained the law as it exists in the United States today.
Right. And it seems people are taking issue with you presenting to the students some of the facts about gun violence, but you laid out the stunning facts of gun violence, right, in that class?
I presented some data about gun violence in that presentation, yes, Senator.
African Americans, do you recall, are they more likely to die by firearm violence than their peers?
Senator, I don't remember all of the
That's okay.
facts that are in
just
that
asking.
presentation. I would have to go back and refer to it.
Well, they are, even when you control for education, even when you control for socioeconomic status, they're much more likely to die by gun violence. Black boys and men are 21 times more likely to die from firearm violence than their peers. And you discussed, in general, to your recollection, you discussed that issue, correct?
That's correct.
What about domestic violence and the extraordinary reality of a woman being more likely to die of domestic violence if there is a gun in the household? Did you discuss that at all?
I don't remember if we discussed it. I was generally presenting the data that was compiled on slides.
And to the best of your knowledge, did you talk about the issue of children in America dying by firearms?
Senator, I recall specifically discussing the issue of suicide by firearms.
Right. And it's the number one killer of our kids in America. I'm not sure if are you aware of that?
I have heard that said, Senator.
And so your personal beliefs, whatever you think of those facts, they're facts. Your personal beliefs, how do they affect how you rule as a judge, whether you have them or not, on this issue?
Senator, I feel strongly that a judge's personal beliefs, whether that be policy views or religious views, I'm a person of faith, that you have to put all of it to the side when you're a judge. And you've got to look at the specific record in that case and really make sure you understand what's going on in that case. And you've got to apply the applicable law, whether that's the text of a statute, whether that's binding precedent of the United States Supreme Court. That's what your job is.
Well, God bless America for a second, or always. I've heard that answer from people up for the circuit court that were nominated by Donald Trump and nominated by Joe Biden. I've seen it accepted by people on both sides of the aisle, that whatever your personal beliefs are, that you feel confident that they do not enter in to your assessment of the law. And so you're affirming that like many judges before you have, correct?
That's correct, Senator.
And how about the emotionalism? Friends of mine on both sides of the aisle here in the Senate, we were all passionately hurt by what we saw happen in Uvalde. It's hard not to be an American and see children slaughtered and not feel grievous anguish over that. I'm sure you're a human being, I think. In all seriousness, you are, and you have human emotions. And when you see horrors like that, when you sit in that seat as a judge, how is those emotions and those feelings going to affect your duty?
Well, I am a human and I'm a mom. I don't know if my kids are still here, if they're sitting still, but they are things that are concerning if you think about safety of your kids. But when you put on that robe and you are adjudicating cases, you've got to be looking at the record in the case and the applicable law. It's important to listen to the parties' arguments and really hear what they have to say. But at the end of the day, you are guided by the guiding precedents, by the text of statutes, and that has to guide the decision.
So let me just say this. First of all, I disagree with you. I read your bio. You remind me of my mom in a bit, which means you're not human, you're superhuman. And I appreciate the kind of commitment you're making by sitting here before us. The second thing I'll say in conclusion is simply this. Your answers align with so many other of the judges that have ascended onto the Circuit Court of the United States of America that I've heard nominated by multiple presidents. I trust that you will administer the law from this important position without emotion or not letting your personal beliefs undermine your rulings. And that, to me, is what it means to be a judge. And I take you not only at your word, from looking at your bio, from listening to your answers to other questions, I have great confidence that you will not only be a good judge, but one that I will vote for to ascend to this circuit court. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to both of the nominees. Judge Pan, nice to see you. I've received the nicest note and letter from former Attorney General and Judge Mukasey, who I see is sitting behind you. And Judge, good to see you again. Thank you, as ever, for your service. And Judge Pan, congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
Ms. Bloomkatz, can I just ask you a question, a follow-up question? Senator Booker was just talking about domestic violence, violence against women, and I want to follow up on that line of questioning. You represented Brandon Moore when you were in private practice, is that right?
Yes, Senator.
You remember that case?
Jones Day, the firm that I was at the time, had accepted his representation as part of their pro bono practice.
How did you come to represent him?
The public defender's office had a conflict in that case, and so they approached Jones Day and myself and several of the attorneys there about taking on the representation because they were conflicted out of that.
So you weren't appointed by a court, you volunteered to do it?
Right at the outset of the case, Senator, I know it's a bit confusing, but right at the outset of the case, it was taken on by Jones Day as part of its pro bono practice. Later on, I was indeed appointed by the 7th District Court of Appeals of Ohio to represent Mr. Moore.
Well, but when Jones, I'm just trying to figure out how you got involved. It sounds like when you were at Jones Day, you volunteered to work on the case. Is that right?
That's correct,
Okay.
Senator.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Brandon Moore. And sadly, I need to warn folks in the audience and watching this that the details of this case are very unpleasant. I'm not going to read all of them. These are taken from the Ohio Supreme Court's factual recitation. If you want to read it for yourself, it's 149 Ohio State 3rd 557. So Brandon Moore, on the evening of August 21st, 2001, Youngstown, Ohio, he started that evening by robbing two people at gunpoint in their driveway. He fled the scene. He then went with a group of other individuals and hunted down a 21-year-old Youngstown University student, young woman, who was working the night shift at a group home for mentally handicapped women. Are you with me so far? Mr. Moore, your client then held this young woman at gunpoint, told her to give him all of her money and belongings. He and his accomplices then brutally attacked her, raped her multiple times. Mr. Moore kidnapped her, drove her away, followed by another member of his group, continued to sexually assault her while he did that. Mr. Moore and his companion drove down a dead-end street, forced this young woman out of the car. She was pregnant, by the way. Continued to violently rape her at gunpoint, then went through all of her belongings on her person. Finally, Mr. Moore ended by shoving a gun in her mouth. I'm not going to read all of his quotes, it's too graphic, but basically threatened her and said that he'd kill her if she or her family told anybody about the attack. She later said that attack killed a part of her. They killed a part of my soul. I'm quoting her, that I can never get back. He was sentenced to 141 years in prison. The trial court determined that he could not be rehabilitated. That's a quote. Mr. Moore could not be rehabilitated. It would be a waste of time and money and common sense to even try, end quote. You, however, argued all the way to the Ohio Supreme Court that he ought to be released early because his sentence was a violation of the Eighth Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. And you also said at the end of the case to the press, I'm going to quote you now, kids are different. And any sentence for a non-homicide offense that denies them a second chance of life is unconstitutional. Kids are different. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why you call this teenager who did the things I just described a kid and say that kids are different and he ought to be treated differently. Help me understand that. Why you chose to represent this individual. You have a lot of talent. You're highly educated. You're obviously extremely capable. You, by your own estimation, devoted hundreds of pro bono hours to representing Mr. Moore. Why are kids different? Why is this guy a kid? And why shouldn't he have served time for his horrific crimes, for what he did to that young woman?
Senator, there were horrific crimes in that case, and despite the horrific crimes in that case, I do believe that everyone is entitled to defense and everyone's entitled to a constitutional sentence. And the United States Supreme Court in the case Graham versus Florida did say that kids are different. If they are under 18, they are treated differently under the Constitution. And it was my duty as Mr. Moore's advocate to argue that he receive a sentence that comported with the case in Graham.
Well, just to be clear, the Supreme Court didn't say kids are different. You said kids are different. That's not their quote. That's your quote. This was a case of first impression. Graham deals with a different set of facts. You argued to the Ohio Supreme Court it ought to be extended to people like Mr. Moore, and you succeeded. I mean, the Ohio Supreme Court took you up on it, and they said that the guy ought to be released. I just am surprised that this is how you choose to use your considerable talents and to argue for the extension of a Supreme Court case to an individual like this and to argue that he's somehow different. He's a criminal. He was 15 years old at the time he committed these horrific crimes, and what he took away from that young woman, she'll never get back. I just find that I find it hard to understand. My time's expired. I know there are others who are going to want to ask questions, so I'll follow up with some more questions for the record. But thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Bloomkatz, do you have a response?
Senator, I would just say that it was my duty to represent Mr. Moore and to ask that he be given a constitutional sentence in compliance with Graham versus Florida.
Thank you very much. Senator, I believe, is there, if there are no other senators seeking recognition? We were waiting for Senator Lee for a few minutes here. I don't know. We have another panel, do we not? So I'm going to thank the two nominees for appearing before us. And there may be written questions sent your way, which we'd ask you to give a prompt response to, so we can move the process along. Thank you very much. We'll now call the second panel.
Thank you.
The three members of the second panel would please stand and raise their right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record indicate that they both, all three, answered in the affirmative. And we'll start with Ms. Reyes. You have 5 minutes to... I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Judge Haynes would be first. You have 5 minutes to introduce your family, friends, and say what you wish, please.
Thank you. Good morning. First, thank you to each of the committee members for your time and consideration today. I'd also like to thank you, Chair Durbin and Ranking Member Grassley, for scheduling this hearing, and to President Biden for nominating me to this important position. I'd also like to extend my sincere appreciation to Senators Kaine and Warner for their thoughtful and confidence and support throughout this process, as well as their warm remarks this morning. Please let me introduce my family. I'm joined today by my parents, John and Vicki Wilson. They are here today, and they are my North Star. They raised me and my 4 sisters on a small family farm in West Virginia. My father worked as a veterinarian and as a farmer, and my mother was a counselor at a federal prison and a small business owner. They taught me hard work and to value family, community, education, and our faith. It is because of my parents' encouragement and the example that they set that I knew I could be anything and go anywhere. And it is thanks to them that I am here today. One of my 4 sisters, Kate Fife, is representing all of them. She is here today, along with her daughter, Abby Fife. My husband, Patrick Haynes, as well as 3 of our 4 children are here today. Our children are our joy, and I am blessed to have them in my life. They are bright, they are kind, and I'm so proud of each of them, especially today. I would simply not be here today but for the support and confidence of so many people, which are too numerous to name, but which do include the judges for whom I clerked, my colleagues and mentors on the bench, my professors, my former colleagues at the Federal Public Defender's Office and with my former firm, my court family, my law clerks undoubtedly, and so many friends and family. Thank you to each of you. Thank you, Senators. I look forward to talking with you.
Thanks, Judge Haynes. Ms. Reyes.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley and abstention, Senators, thank you for having this hearing, and I am grateful for your service to our nation. I know firsthand what a great nation we have. I am an immigrant, and in the 1st grade could not speak English. Mrs. Patricia Harkerode, my teacher at a public school in Louisville, Kentucky, came in most mornings an hour early to help me catch up. I am thrilled to say that she is with us here today. If you had told us early then about today, I am sure that she would have fainted straight away. I would have stared at you blankly because, again, no English. The point being that the road from there to here was not an obvious one, but I would never have found the starting point without her, and I will always be grateful. I have spent my 2-decade career at Williams & Connolly. From day one, I have been welcomed and encouraged and mentored by arguably the finest attorneys and legal staff in the country, and certainly some of the finest people. It is a privilege every day to be a member of the Williams & Connolly family. And if friends are the family that you make, I have been blessed with an incomparable extended family. I have a number of friends for whom I am grateful, and I would like to highlight Elizabeth, Dee, Zoe, and Kate. I have known these extraordinary women for almost a century. They have carried me when I could not walk, they have celebrated with me when I could fly, and they have each, in their own unique, special way, teased me relentlessly. My mother, Lilium, is also here today, as is my older brother, Luis. They have taught me by example that what you give back to society is far more valuable than anything that you could take from it. My father, Javier, and younger brother, Ernesto, are unfortunately no longer with us, but I know that they are somewhere together, eating my father's homemade empanadas and rooting me on. In my career, I have been privileged to represent individuals fleeing torture born of lawlessness. My clients have instilled in me the unshakable commitment and belief that the rule of law is the bedrock of our society. If confirmed, I would represent that rule of law as zealously as I have represented each of my clients. Finally, I would like to thank Chair Durbin for your kind introduction, Representative Holmes Norton for her recommendation of my nomination to the President, and President Biden for this nomination, which is a true honor and privilege. I would also like to thank the Senators and your very hardworking staff for preparing for this hearing and reviewing all of the nominees' materials. I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Reyes. Mr. Uriarte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Grassley, for holding this hearing today. I also want to thank Senator Padilla for the very kind introduction. And I want to thank my family and friends for their support throughout my career and throughout this process. I'm joined today by my partner, Nate, my mother, Magda, my father, Carlos, as well as numerous dear friends and family members. I am the grandson of immigrants from El Salvador and Ecuador who came to the United States to build a better life. They instilled in me a profound gratitude for the opportunities this country provided them and a sense of obligation to demonstrate that gratitude through service. I was attracted to a career in Washington because I wanted to understand how Congress and the executive branch work together to get things done for the American people. My first insight into this dynamic was as a law clerk to the Republican chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Arlen Specter. That experience introduced me to the inner workings of the Senate and the value of government service. After law school, I worked for 2 international law firms and clerked for a federal judge. I returned to Capitol Hill and had the honor to work for Representative Judy Chu and the late Elijah Cummings when he was ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. I will never forget how Congressman Cummings stressed the importance of giving a voice to the voiceless. He believed fiercely in using one's position in public service to build bridges across differences, and would often admonish us to seek, quote, not just common ground, but higher ground. After the Oversight Committee, I moved to the executive branch, where I eventually served as an Associate Deputy Attorney General, advising Department of Justice leadership on a range of issues involving Congress. After a role in the private sector, I returned to Congress in 2020 to serve as Chief Counsel for Investigations on the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis to Majority Whip James Clyburn. Recognizing the scale of the challenge our country faced with the pandemic, I joined the Select Subcommittee because I believed effective oversight of the executive branch would inform and improve the government's response to the crisis. These experiences have instilled in me a passion for government service, rooted in the belief that government can be a force for good. My experience in both the legislative and executive branches has taught me that oversight and transparency are necessary and vital features of good government. Should I be fortunate enough to be confirmed, I will bring this healthy respect for Congress to the role of Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legislative Affairs. Thank you for considering my nomination, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uriarte. And I'm going to recognize Senator Whitehouse because he has to leave for another committee. But before I do, I want to make a special recognition again of Ms. Harkleroad. Thank you for being here today. It's an inspiring story of a teacher making a profound difference in the life of a student. And it wouldn't have happened if you didn't make that extra effort that so many teachers make. So thank you. We honor your presence today in this Senate Judiciary Committee meeting. You're welcome. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. That's very kind of you and much appreciated. Mr. Uriarte, I will support you and I look forward to working with you, but I want to flag publicly that I think you're walking into a situation in which there is a persistent, even cultural and systemic problem with oversight and accountability in the Department of Justice. I'm on numerous committees, and there are numerous agencies that we interrelate with, and I do think the department is unique in my experience. Getting witnesses is like pulling teeth, and getting information is too often an exercise in prevarication and obfuscation. It got so bad under the Trump administration that then Chairman Graham brought the Deputy Attorney General up to his office to explain why we were getting stonewalled, and even that didn't break the wall of departmental indifference to congressional oversight. So I just want to give you an example that is relevant to this particular hearing, because on March 2nd of 2021, the Judiciary Committee held an FBI oversight hearing with Director Reyes, March 2nd, 2021. We filed QFRs, questions for the record, right after those hearings. There's a deadline, Chairman, a week or two to get them out. So they were within a week or two of March 2nd that they went out. The FBI did not respond all that year, and they did not respond this year until June 20th of 2022, which I think has a lot to do with this hearing panel, with you being here to have to answer questions. They didn't want to have to answer why we hadn't gotten answers to QFRs for well over a year. On October 27th, we had a DOJ oversight hearing with Attorney General Garland, and DOJ did not respond to QFRs submitted by other colleagues until June 17th, 2022. Again, just a few days before this hearing. It looks to me like when we have no answer for over a year, and then a DOJ witness comes in and suddenly somebody goes in and says, okay, I guess we better answer these things. That's not a great response protocol in terms of timing. So beyond timing, let's just take a look at quality, if you don't mind. One of my questions was the following: who would be the most knowledgeable about the supplemental background investigation for then Judge Brett Kavanaugh, particularly any communication with the White House? What do you think the operative word in that question would be?
Senator, I think you're referring to the word who.
Yes, precisely. And I think anybody with a moderately good handling of the English language would know that that was the case. So what we got was 3 paragraphs of response that did not answer that question. The following one was the same way. Who would be the most knowledgeable about the information channel provided to Senate Republicans for information about the Crossfire Hurricane investigation? Also not answered relevantly. What was answered to the first question was these 3 paragraphs which looked familiar to us. So we went and took a look at this June 30, 2021 letter to myself and Senator Coons from the Department of Justice, and this answer is a verbatim quote of the sections of this letter. It's non-responsive, it's late, and it doesn't properly cite to the fact that it's repeating stuff that we were given separately. So there was absolutely nothing to this QFR response other than, I don't know, to try to make us fool us into thinking that that wasn't previously provided non-responsive stuff. So please help us work through this. This has been a persistent problem. I don't think it's a Biden administration problem. I don't think it's a Trump administration problem. I think it goes all the way back to the Obama administration in some respects. I think it is a department problem. I think the department is different than other departments of government in its non-responsiveness, at least in my experience. And I find it very hard to understand why we would get an answer that is so late, that doesn't answer the obvious who, what, when, where question, the leading word in the question, and that hauls out old text and dumps it in, copying what was given before without saying so. I don't think you can defend that, so I'm not going to ask you to defend it, and it's not your job to defend it because you're going into this mess not responsible for it. But please understand that frustrations are running pretty high. Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate your help letting me get these questions asked and this comment made before I have to go do my amendment in finance.
And I concur with you. We've been through this now for over a year and a half. I've voted for every member of the leadership of the Department of Justice sent to us by President Biden. I've tried my best to work with them and think we have a pretty good record of what we've done. But getting simple answers to questions has become just impossible. I don't understand it. I guess the less said, the better is the philosophy of the Department of Justice under all attorneys general. So I would tell you that pretty soon you'll be approved and pretty soon you're in the soup and you'll be back here. And it may not be as pleasant as this gathering, which probably doesn't feel as pleasant to you at this moment. But I concur completely with you, Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. And if I could, I'd ask unanimous consent that the QFR and its response and the June 30, 2021 letter out of which the response was cribbed be made a part of the record of this.
Without objection. To the other nominees, Ms. Reyes, you do a lot of work in asylum cases. Briefly describe to us what an asylum case is and give us some examples of cases that you think have been a test to the justice system in America.
Thank you, Senator.
You make sure you turn your mic on.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, individuals who are refugees are individuals who cannot receive or will not receive protection from their governments for a type of persecution based on a number of factors such as their race or their political opinion or their religion. I have represented a number of these individuals, some of whom were literally fleeing for their lives. One individual was jailed because of his political beliefs. Every day while he was there, they would take him out for hot coughing, which meant that they would hang him upside down, put tar on his feet, turn him back right side up, and make him walk around the prison guards or the prison floor. He was able to escape and flee to the United States. We were able to get him asylum. He subsequently went on to get a master's in engineering, become a citizen, get married, and he just had a second daughter 2 days ago. I also represented 4 young women who were, along with all of their other classmates, kidnapped at gunpoint. Boko Haram put their school on fire, and they took all of the girls to a forest. Many of them have since died. My clients were able to escape We were able to get them into the United States legally on humanitarian parole, and then we were able to get each of the girls asylum. Those 4 girls are now in college. One has a 4.0 GPA and wants to be a doctor. Another one was an ROTC in high school and college. She is currently in schooling to become a lieutenant in the Air Force. When my friend Dee asked her why the Air Force, she said, "I want to protect the country that has protected me." I think that is what asylum does for us. It allows people who are fleeing violence to find refuge in the United States. They come here and they become citizens who contribute to our society.
In these cases, these asylum cases, some arise from a process, filings, people who are in refugee camps around the world who seek asylum, I think through the United Nations, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, Senator.
And many are carefully investigated before they're allowed to even be considered for refugee status, asylum status.
That's correct, Senator. And even when they apply for asylum, they receive a second check from both the Department of State and, I believe, DOJ.
At our southern border, though, it's a different story. They have not, the vast majority have not filed papers before they arrive. They claim asylum status at the border, and they have to have a kind of a preliminary, a threshold proof that they have a credible fear along certain specific areas. Is that correct?
That's correct, Senator. It's often quite difficult for them. Many of them don't speak English. They don't understand the process. They invariably do not have lawyers, so they are basically trying to explain why their lives are in danger in a system that they don't understand and in a language that they don't understand.
And those who do present themselves at the border, if you know, are subject to that initial determination of credible fear and then go through a hearing and maybe an ultimate court decision. Are you familiar with that process?
I am, Senator. Our firm has handled many of those cases.
Do you have any idea what percentage of those who come to our border seeking asylum or refugee status and go into the process are actually approved to stay in the United States?
Sir, I don't have that in front of me. What I do know is that a vast majority of the individuals who pass the credible fear interview do go on to become asylees. They do ultimately get asylum through the court process.
And I might add that there are limitations on their roles in the United States, even as asylees. Is that not true?
There is from people coming abroad, as you note, from UNHCR and other entities. And there are also, I believe, restrictions or caps on the number of individuals who can receive green cards every year.
Ms. Haynes, I want to ask you, Judge Haynes, your experience with drug courts in Virginia.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I do have the privilege to preside over our reentry court in the Richmond Division of the Eastern District of Virginia. And that court admits individuals who are serving a term of supervised release where substance abuse is a primary factor in their potential violations of their conditions of their supervised release. And so I work together with probation, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Federal Public Defender's Office, as well as counselors and community members to advise and supervise and assist these individuals in reaching sobriety and maintaining that sobriety.
So what is your experience? There's some skeptics and cynics who say it's a waste of time. If they're addicts, they'll always be addicts. And others say this is a disease. Addiction is a disease. It should be treated as such. And our legal system should be aware of that fact and not waste a lot of time and resources if proper medical assistance is all that's needed. What's been your experience?
Thank you, Senator. My experience, and I believe that the statistics demonstrate that there's about a 50% success rate in drug courts. But my personal observations, we recently had 2 individuals graduate from our drug court program, and to see the change in their lives, the fact that they can be available to their families, that they have jobs, it is immensely rewarding. And I think the entire team in Richmond, as well as the other district court judges, fully support the program.
How long have you been involved in either drug courts or legal practice associated with drug courts?
I've presided over our drug court program for the past 2 years as a federal magistrate judge, and then previously as an assistant federal public defender. Many of my clients were admitted into the program, and I explained the benefits of the program and the rigors of the program to
Over
them.
how many years would that be?
I was a federal public defender for 7 years, Senator.
I noted something that you may or may not have seen the same, but the opioid crisis introduced a new class of addiction. It was no longer the stereotypical addict who was usually, in many instances, a person who was a minority, male, at a certain age group. And most people would have predicted if they heard about a drug overdose that the victim fit into that classification. Opioids changed the conversation completely. It now involved high school students in the suburbs and perfectly successful by external means individuals who became addicted and their lives were almost ruined, if not compromised by the experience. Our conversation changed. It was a discussion then not about just say no, but about the addictive notion and whether or not it was a health consequence that we ought to view from a health perspective. I think there's been more open-mindedness about it since, and I think we ought to be cognizant of that. I thank you for your work in that area. Senator Cruz did you want to comment on that? You may. No? Okay.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Cruz is notified he's on the way. Is there any more information on? Okay, if we could just hold on for a minute or two and see if he comes around. I'm sorry to ask you to wait, but as you can tell, schedules are kind of tough to predict here. So at ease. It's as close as I came to the military service. I'm sorry. We've been notified by the senator who was on his way that he can't make it. And so at this point, we're going to adjourn the committee meeting. Thank you all for being here today, and you may receive written questions, as I've probably noted earlier. I hope that you'll give a prompt response to them. Those questions, for the record, are due to the nominees by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, June the 29th, and the record will likewise remain open until that time to submit letters and other similar materials. And with that, the hearing stands adjourned. Thank you.